Great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. We are on our live Q&A episode that we do once a month. We would love to have you join us and ask your questions live. I'm here, of course, with Colleen. You have to unmute.
Myself. Hello.
Hello. And we're here with Danny.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
Glad you're here. And we're here with a group of people. We usually start around this number, about 20 to 25, and then it kind of grows as the hours go on. So you're always welcome to join us and ask your questions and be a part of this divinely ordered circle that we do once a month. So we are going to go ahead and get started with an invocation. I do want to just say real quick, Colleen has some Reiki classes coming up. A Reiki 1 and 2 and a Reiki Master coming up towards the end of August.
It's next week. When this gets posted Monday, it'd be this weekend.
Okay, great. So we would love to have you join us. Go to Reiki Lifestyle.
And the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for Master.
Okay. Go to ReikiLifestyle.com to find those classes. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead then and get started with our invocation. We always do this to just kind of bring the circle together, to bring Colleen and I in and everybody else in, and get us just really centered and grounded before we start with these conversations. So Colleen, do you want to go ahead?
Doing the invocation?
Yep.
Okay. And also for any of you listening, sometimes these invocations go very deep. They're always channeled. So we never know. Maybe, I go in thinking, oh, it's going to be short, and then it's deep. And so if you are not in a position to go deep and the invocation is going to take you there, then listen to it later, fast forward into the conversation. All right. But if you can listen and be busy at the same time, that's okay too. So sometimes that's how that works. All right. So go ahead and get comfortable. Close your eyes and take some deep breaths. And place your hands comfortably on your body. Open your heart and receive. As the light of your authentic self fills your breath, awakening and revealing your authentic self to you. What that even means. Awakening in your perceptions, the power of love that you are. Awakening and revealing your higher thought and higher consciousness with the power of the divine mind. Your authentic intuition, imagination, your instincts all awake, your senses heightened, and your perceptions expanded. Your ability to hear yourself and your authentic truth, your inner awareness, your inner authority, all awakening around you now and within you. As you breathe in the light of the divine mind, it fills your gut brain, your heart brain, and your head brain, aligning it all with your divine heart, your authentic voice. And the light of the earth rises through you. The light of the heavens shine through you, and it's all unified right here in your core, in your center. And you remember, as your spirit ignites, that you are one light, one breath, your light right now, your breath in this moment. And you open your heart and you breathe deeply and receive from the earth, from the heavens, from within. as your heart light shines in front of you and behind you, on each side, above you and below you and within you. And all around you is the light of Reiki and the power of love and divine mind and pure heart, power of the earth and the love of the heaven. Divine compassion fills your breath. And like the tree of life, your roots grow deeply into the earth and receive from the earth, made of the earth. This is how you commune and communicate with the earth as your branches reach to the heavens and circle back to the earth. And the abundance of life and the beauty of life is here, awakening within you your inner wisdom, inner knowing. Your soul's knowledge wakes up. Your heart knowledge wakes up. Your head knowledge wakes up. All aligned in this breath right now. As your perceptions expand, and all around you are the beautiful beings in the light, and those of the earth, those of the heavens, the enlightened ones of your heart, divine animal kingdom, the angels and archangels, sacred and beloved ones of each of you, the ascended masters and our brothers and sisters in the light, the higher frequencies of the earth and the biofields, the love of the creation of the universe. As you open your heart and receive gratitude and thanksgiving, and the gratitude fills your breath, as you say thank you to the earth that provides everything for you. And thank you to the waters of the earth and all the life in the waters. And your heart is filled with gratitude and thanksgiving for the plant nations, food and the medicine plants, and gratitude for those people who still know how to use them and are in communion with the plants. Thank you. And gratitude fills your breath, and thanksgiving for all the animals of the earth, those who are close to us and those afar and those we don't even know about yet. Oh, thank you for the diversity of the animals and the joy they bring us. And we say thank you to the trees and the birds in the trees, as the smallest bird sings the greatest sound, and the great eagle and condor in the sky soaring high above. Thank you. And to the trees that give them their homes, and the trees that are so beautiful in our world. Thank you. Thank you to the four winds as their breeze flows through the branches of the trees, carrying the wisdom of the ancients. From the people and the animals and the stones and the waters, the air, wisdom of the earth. And thank you to our grandmother, the moon, oh, so beautiful in our night sky, guiding our way, caring for the rhythms and the cycles and the tides of the earth and of the women. Thank you to our brother, the sun, bringing us the light of the world and life, and the sun within you wakes up your sun shining brightly revealed. Thank you. And to the planets and to the solar system and the rhythms and the cycles of this creation and of the universe. Thank you. The stars in the night sky. And thank you to the enlightened ones and the great being of the universe. We invite you, shine on us and be our friend. And we take the power of this prayer now to the peace grids all around the world by all the different traditions that peace is invited. And to the peace grids, we send the power of this love and peace and prayer for peace to the North Pole and the South Pole, to the peace grid in Jerusalem, in Hawaii, Michigan, and Japan, the peace grids of the people. And the rhythm and the frequency of peace. Breathe deeply now and receive as peace fills your breath, flowing into you and for you. Peace within, in this moment and all of the circumstances in your life. Take this moment and receive the peace. Thank you. And so it is. Thank you to you. We are so grateful for our divinely ordered circle, all who are here today and those who listen later. Thank you. And all the enlightened ones that have joined us of the earth and in the light. And the teachers who came before us, the descendants who come after. Thank you. There's a particular energy here before we complete the invocation that is inviting the field of light of Reiki around you, above you, below you. And this is acting like a filter for you and for your empathy, that you can be free to be in the fullness of yourself with this field of light around you, filtering the outside noise for you. Lifting you into higher frequencies with your empathy. And into the energy of joy. And receive the power of joy. It's more than a feeling. It's a state of being. It's also a feeling. So receive the power of joy and the energy of joy as it fills your breath and flows into your body. And the light of Reiki all around you, creating a filter, the outside world. And lifting you into the higher frequencies with your empathy. Thank you. And so it is. Okay, because it is podcast, I'm going to come back quickly. Any of you who need to take more time, please do so. Take as much time as you need. I think I will share what was showing up in the invocation for me. So even if you're listening now, at the very end, I actually thought I was finishing it. And then it came back in with the Thanksgiving address and to bring in gratitude for everything from the earth all the way to great being of the universe and everything in between. And that actually is the Thanksgiving address given to us by Chief Jake Swamp, Adnanashi. Came out too many syllables, but the Iroquois people, elder of the Iroquois people. And it's on our website under ceremonies in the Reiki library. And it's in the gratitude ceremony. But anyway, that came in with the energy of gratitude. And then thinking that I was finished after that, then came in the awareness of that filter of Reiki and what that physically means for me when I think of it, like how am I making that filter happen around me using Reiki? That to me is when you take some of the Reiki energies or symbols, whichever ones you're called to, and you actually place them in front of you, on each side, behind you, above you, below you, and it creates this filter of Reiki energy. So it showed up for me yesterday how much empathic stress there is right now. And by empathic, Danny, I see you smiling. Must be like, yes, that's it. How much empathic stress there is right now for those of us that have empathy a lot, and many in these fields of Reiki, of course, do have really high levels of empathy. And so the empathic stress can come from, all the energies that we can pick up on and feel or think or know, or however that comes through for you, because your empathy is going to be individual and unique for you. And so what can happen when you place that field around you of Reiki, it's like a filter. And so any of that kind of outside noise, the outside distractions, the lower frequencies that can capture your attention actually go through a filter. Thought forms, walking into other people's energies. Suddenly you hear something on the TV, or maybe a headline you read, or somebody says something. That Reiki energy can actually create a filter and place that around you so you can be in your wholeness within that filter. And you don't have to be so guarded or feel so vulnerable. The other piece of that is understanding that also you can lift your empathy and use it to lift into higher frequencies of energies that exist. So we often think of being in our empathic or, having empathy is only feeling or experiencing the outside negativity or other people's pains or absorbing things, that don't belong to us. And so we often think of empathy that way, but you can also become skilled with your empathy to lift into the higher frequencies that also always exist. Because Reiki energy entrains you to those higher frequencies, because it's always in the higher frequencies. It's life force energy that is a higher frequency energy, however you perceive that. It can be a biofield, it can be a stream of frequency that is part of the earth. And so you can actually develop your awareness that you can entrain and lift your empathy into the higher frequencies. So one of the things Robin and I have been, really working on some of our business stuff with our website and things like that. And we have been just so talking about the frequency of joy right now. Like it is an actively talked about energy that since it's connecting in, I hear it everywhere. So that's a perfect example, and that showed up in the invocation, is to lift into that frequency because the energy of joy is being really empowered right now. And so you can lift into those frequencies using Reiki. So how to, because we're always into the how to. How do you do it? Just invite it. It truly is that simple, because the other thing that happens with Reiki is it activates your inner awareness. So your inner awareness naturally can connect into those higher frequencies. And a lot of times, so let's say I am like, here I say, oh, just do it, and then life is hard, and that's a hard thing to do. Right. And it's a hard thing to let go of some of the things that are hard and then think, oh, yeah, now I'm just enjoy. I have spent 25 years listening to what is the energy of joy. And that was because when I originally started Reiki Lifestyle, whenever that was, it was actually even before Reiki Lifestyle, when my business name was The Color of Reiki. And I was doing the, setting it up, and we needed a tagline and things. And my niece Summer was helping me with this part of developing my brand identity, which I didn't even know what that was. But my tagline was living the light of joy. And I was like, what does that mean? Like I had no connection to it that I was aware of. So, but I thought, okay, well, that's what she heard me say and reflected back to me. So I'm going to go with that. So I have asked that question with Reiki. What does that mean, living in the light of joy, for 25 years? And one of the vision quests that I did, and I know I've talked about this before, but one of the vision quests that I did, I was just miserable. It was really, really hard. It was really hot. It was 4 days. I was in complete silence. It was very difficult. My father had just died. Robin was a teenager, all these things going on. And I was in so much grief. And the vision I actually received was, even though I was in the feeling of grief, I still had the state of joy within me, that it is a bigger frequency than only the feeling of joy, feeling joyful. And so I've listened around, what does it mean? For all these years, I asked that question, and it takes me deeper and deeper into the meaning of it. And now really understanding that things like joy always are in the enlightened realms. joy is a human experience or an earth experience, because I certainly see animals that experience joy too. I'm picturing the whales jumping right now, just horses running and kicking, they definitely have joy. And oh God, they're all coming in, the golden retrievers. So anyway, that's my brain. So anyway, joy is an earth experience because there's no lack of joy in the enlightened realms. It's not is there joy, isn't there joy? So I've had to really understand it, and Reiki energy actually carries the authentic frequency of joy, the life force energy, the consciousness of joy. And this energy of joy that is around and very highlighted for us, because we're working on all of those things right now, and very highlighted, and just hearing there is a frequency of joy. You don't even have to know what it is to invite a connection with it and let it be given to you. What I have learned is that for me, I love being in the feeling of joy as well as the state of being of joy. But sometimes I'm not in the feeling of joy, but I am in the state of being. And I also am learning more about what that actually means at the deepest soul level. Like, what does that actually mean for me in my life? And so it's been a very big topic in our personal work, our discussions, our Reiki journeys, the things we're talking about. And so that showed up in the invocation. And it showed up as an example of lifting your empathy to another frequency, of letting yourself, like it could be the frequency of gratitude also, of course, was coming in through the prayers, the Thanksgiving address. And then there's other energies just like that you can invite. So you can invite the energy, like the energy of blessings. It's an actual frequency that exists. And a lot of times I don't know what it is that I want to invite. So I just connect in with the idea of Reiki and like, okay, I just receive, because I can't figure it out. Like, it doesn't all come in and I have like a linear understanding of it all. Some of it just has to come in and come into that inner knowing, even if I don't always know what I know. So anyway, long discussion about that, but that showed up so much yesterday because I was feeling empathic stress. And I was like, what am I stressed about? Because there's, I have some legitimate things to be stressed about, for sure. I do. And been in pain with my tooth for a month, by the time it finally got done, and now I'm dealing with it. But other things, I have some legitimate things to be stressed, but it was different than that. And that's all of a sudden I realized, wait, I'm picking up on the empathic stress of the collective right now. And how do I now manage that? And with the people around me and their stress, and also then the stress in the world. And that's where that Reiki filter, coming back around to that Reiki filter, is really helpful to then get to be inside of the energy. You can do it however you want. There's no right way or wrong way to do it. Sometimes I just think it. Like I just need Reiki on all the way around me. And I might even think, Reiki filter on. Oh, that's even a good term. It's like, I see the heads shaking. Oh yeah, we should do that. Right? Create your Reiki filter. But that really is what it is. And so in all circumstances, then that energy of peace came in. There's another example. It's a frequency. because of peace in the enlightened realms just is. There isn't an absence of peace. And so it's a human experience. And these are all things because life force energy, Reiki is life force energy. These are all frequencies in the higher level of them that the Reiki energy promotes within you, activates within you. Okay, I think I feel complete, Robin. Thank you.
All right. Well, so let's go ahead and get to our questions. The first question is from Mary, and she was wondering if there is a standard of practice for tipping. So if you are a practitioner, is there a standards of practice for tipping? And just adjust here. So
can you clarify tipping, just because it could mean so many things?
Okay. So in this instance, tipping was like, with like massage, a lot of times you pay a rate for the massage, and then there is an option to tip on top of the rate for the massage. So that's pretty common practice in a lot of these kind of modalities. And so she was wondering if there's a, kind of standard of practice around that with being a Reiki practitioner. And so the short answer is there is not a standard of practice. So there are going to be a lot of different answers as far as how people handle this type of practice. Some practitioners do have tipping as an option in addition to their services, and then others don't. And there's a variety of reasons as to why that might be the case. So we were kind of having a little bit of a conversation before we started the recording while we were just kind of waiting for everybody to come in around this. And so, like, for example, Colleen and I actually don't have tipping as a part of our billing for a Reiki session. I just personally find it easier, especially because so many of my clients and so many of my sessions are distant. So then adding it onto invoices and things like that, it's just, for me, it's just easier to have my rate set at what I want my rate. And, that might be a little bit higher just because of this aspect that, for example, a tip type thing might be built into my rate. So that is a personal preference. There's also some nuances around that, as we were kind of chatting about. One of the big reasons and one of the big nuances on that is that I work out of my home. So I have distance sessions. I work out of my home. So I don't really have fees for renting a space on top of, just my office, like home office use. And so there is that aspect to that, whether it's a personal preference or not. I don't have those additional aspects to my session part of my practice. However, some people are going to prefer to have that option of a tip on top of it. It's certainly standard in the massage industry, as well as, acupuncturists, things like that. There is and not necessarily there's like a professional written standard. It's just a standard practice that people do. In Reiki, you might be working out of a spa or a massage clinic, things like that, where it is a standard of practice. And so you might add that into a part of your, as your why, that you might add that into your billing policies, your rate policies. Another aspect of that is that she mentioned is that some of those places where you are a practitioner out of, they, have a percentage that they might take of your session fee. So let's say that your session is $100 and they might take anywhere from 10 to up to even 30%. And so by having the session rate that you add for tips, so that you don't have to increase your session rate, pay more for the fee of being a practitioner in that space. And so tipping is a way that you might do that. And so to not be charged for that. Something to consider around that is typically tips are taxed differently than they are than like standard wages or standard rates, things like that. So that is something to consider. Not an accountant, not a professional in that matter, but it's just something to look at in your state as well. So there's those aspects. And again, if it is a standard of practice that your office, that your space works in, you might just be wanting to match that standard of practice so that people, when they come in, they know what they're getting. The payment is the same, whether you're receiving Reiki or receiving a massage, the way that it all operates is the same. Maybe that, office even has their standard of practice for that. So there are a lot of different reasons as to why you might have tips as a part of your practice for being a practitioner, for being for a session. And there's reasons why you may not have tips as a part of your session fee, for lack of a better word, around it. So again, not really a standards of practice in the industry. It's just going to depend on a case-by-case basis. Really what it comes down to too is there's not a right or a wrong around it. It is very acceptable to have tips as a part of your session fee. It's very acceptable to not and have that more built into your sessions as like just the standard. And so let's say where I used that example of $100 before, let's say, if a 20% is a standard tip, for example, then it would be $100 for the session fee, $20 tip. So instead of asking for tips, maybe your rate is $120 for your session without tips. So it just really depends on your situation, and just feel very comfortable in that, because that's one of the bigger things around it with tipping, is that there is that kind of money work that a lot of us need to do. There is that aspect of it, charging appropriately for your sessions, knowing your worth, things like that a lot of us do have to work through. And for me, I'm not uncomfortable having tips. I just personally prefer it this way. And so that's how I like to do it. But I would say that probably in the beginning of being a practitioner, that would have made me uncomfortable. It probably would have stressed me out. If I'm working in a home-based business, like I said, it's a lot different depending on your space, where you're working out of, all of that kind of thing. It probably would have stressed me out. So that would be maybe another reason that I would just build it into the cost of my sessions. However, having said that, it shouldn't be something that stresses you out, because it's an industry. It's not an abnormal thing in this industry, in massage industries, things like that. And so that is just another thing that you might have play into all of this. And again, not a right or a wrong, always are definitely acceptable, and encouraged in however you want to do that. So I think that was kind of all the conversation that we had. Colleen or Danny, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. Yeah, I'm going to actually build on this question because there's another question that it plays into, that we have that plays into it. Maybe you can share a bit about ways to clear unworthiness feelings in charging money for Reiki and also unseen work. So that is another place that a lot of us have to work through with any sort of unworthiness. We have talked a lot about imposter syndrome. We have a whole couple of videos on that in our you can go into our YouTube channel or podcasts and search imposter syndrome. You'll find a couple of episodes around it that we have talked about. And also just the aspect of receiving and charging money for Reiki. And it's funny because in other industries, you may not have that same level of issues around it, healing work that needs to be done, work on our receiving that needs to be done, this exchange of energy that needs to be done. But for some reason, we do find that in Reiki pretty commonly. There are very few people that come through and don't experience that, I would say. I would say most people that come through, it's one of those things that there's different there's different, on the spectrum of it. Like some people are relatively comfortable, but they just have to kind of get into that. And then there's people that are very uncomfortable with it and really have to work through their healing work around charging money, receiving money for Reiki. And I like that you put in unseen work as well, because you're right. There's a lot of unseen work to being a professional practitioner. We have administration things, there's costs associated with being a practitioner. If you are renting a space, there's that cost, but there's a lot of other costs as well. Marketing, there's, taxes, there's all of these other things. Then when we're talking an additional unseen work, like you were saying, you have additional tools and techniques and practices that you add into your Reiki sessions, and many people do. So there are trainings, there's things like that all can come into play when it comes to being a Reiki practitioner. We say all the time that it is the same as any other small business, right? You have the things that take to run a small business, and that is all of the unseen work that we do that our sessions also have to support. So, we do have, it's actually one of the things, which is another question in here, but I'm not going to veer off into this yet. It is another thing that we actually work with multiple times in our Next Step Reiki classes. We have entire modules that are dedicated to it, where we go through and work through our money and success consciousness, because so many of us have it. Also, there can be different aspects within the Reiki industry that say that Reiki should always be free, that we shouldn't be charging for Reiki energy. I will say that, and I'm sure Colleen will talk about this aspect of it, but there are very many historical precedences that Reiki actually should be charged for, that it has been has been businesses in the past. And so again, I'm sure Colleen will talk about that aspect of it. But this is a place that you can come, that you can ask Reiki to come in and help you heal, and specifically use that intention. I would like Reiki to come in and lift from me all of the culturally created, all of the societally created aspects that are inhibiting me from receiving the energy exchange of money, because that's really what money is. It is an energy exchange. Also, to really heal that aspect of receiving, because many of us in these practices are overgivers. And so receiving is really a challenge for us. And is it even easy for you to receive a compliment, right? Receiving compliments, I'm always going to justify it in some way, shape, or form, rather than just saying thank you. So ridiculous, right? And it's a continual work in progress with it. It's also empowering your receiving, because that's another aspect that Reiki energy does, empowering that worth and self-worth, empowering the importance of this work as well. Going into that aspect of it as well, because this is training that we've received. It's important for people's healing. It's important for the world. It's important, just as accountants and lawyers and things like that have their practices, their skills, even their gifts. And we need to start equating it to that, because it helps people. helps people in their stress reduction. It helps people in their healing journeys. It's a complement to Western medicine. It's a complement to therapy. It's a complement to all of these things, and it really can accelerate the healing in even the complementary or integrative healing aspects that we use Reiki for. So it's also, returns us to wellness in so many different ways. And when we can reveal our authentic self, when we can go into that vibrant, fully holistic, and I use holistic as a WHOL, holistic self, and go into our full wellness, that is when we are going to live our, best and most vibrant and vital and joyful lives. So it's so important in those aspects as well. Also, just adding these frequencies and these ways into the world, anchoring them into the world is super important too. And many of us know that they change. It changes our lives, right? It changes our lives, whether instantly or over time. It changes our lives. And what's more important than that? I mean, there's things that are important, but what's more important than that for us to be living our best self and our best life? So it's also that remembering of what these aspects, what these services do for ourselves, and empowering that within ourselves, reminding ourselves on a continuous basis around that. And so we have that aspect. And then, of course, asking Reiki energy to go in and help us with these. And there's a lot of work that can be found out there on money consciousness, success consciousness, realizing that there is an energy exchange with money. We're giving our services and we're receiving for that. And Reiki is inherently a part of that we receive as we give as well. It's a part of the energy around that. And so reframing it in our heads, reframing it in our minds, reframing it in our hearts, and doing the work to support that with Reiki energy, and also looking up other work. I know we have some on our podcasts and YouTube and things like that. We've had guests on that's part of their specialty, is really helping people to work through that. Also, when it comes down to it, remembering that all Reiki practitioners do a lot of free work, right? You're never going to not do free work. You're going to send Reiki because in our heart of hearts, we really care. That is a part of why most of us got into this in the first place. 99% of us got into this in the first place, is that we care about the well-being of ourselves, our families, the world. We want to help. And so you're going to be sending free Reiki. You're going to have free sessions with at least friends and family, right? You are going to be sending Reiki to world events, going to be sending Reiki to animals. There's so many different places that you spend your time sending Reiki to people, to things, to the earth, that you do end up giving a lot of Reiki away. It's limitless. So I don't mean it that way, but you do spend so much time in those parts of your practice as well. And none of us are in this industry to become billionaires that don't share our wealth, right? I mean, we are talking that we are small businesses, and that we are trying to live also within something that we're very passionate about. You really, again, people start Reiki businesses because they're passionate about how it has helped them, how you've seen it transform people, and you want to live in a space and do a job or do work that you're also really passionate about. And so, we're not talking about we're in this just to make money as much as possible and, live that kind of lifestyle. But at the same time, you get to be in the place where it can support you. And it does have to also change within the Reiki industry so that more people can do it, so that it can support you. Because if you are off doing another job, you can't do as much Reiki, right? It's just because your time is going to be spent elsewhere. And so it is important that it can support it is important that it can support us as practitioners. And also reminding yourself of that as well, that if it didn't support you, then you wouldn't be able to do it as much. And it is important that it is a part of this world. It is a part of this space. It is a part of spiritual healing, as well. So Colleen, I'm sure that you have, yeah, thanks, Kara. I want to add this to this other conversation that we were talking about before with tipping. Kara put in there, instead of thinking of it as tipping, change it to the word gratuity.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I like that. Yeah. Well, probably I'll just give a short answer because you've said a lot of it. But I think for me, the first step that was helpful was understanding that if I wanted to do as much Reiki as I wanted to do, it had to financially support me. So that was step one. But what really the tipping point was for me in getting comfortable charging is that I realized that my discomfort in charging was actually getting put on my clients, and that it was actually like because I was so awkward with it, that it was actually something. Finally, I recognized, well, I'm kind of imposing it on them by being awkward with it. And the other thing that I found was that people were uncomfortable asking for continued Reiki without paying for it. So, there's always, as Robin said, there's always free Reiki, there's always discounted Reiki, there's always those things. But even one of the times when I raised my rates, I hadn't raised them in like 6 years or something, and I raised my rates, and I will tell you how many of my clients said, well, it is about time you did that. You should be taking care of yourself. So then finally, the other thing that I would add, and that was a tipping point for me, and it's interesting because as we talk about how we're healing ourselves with some of this stuff, what made that easier for me to do it for me was how I was affecting other people, because I found that I was affecting other people by this energy. The other piece of it is that as a teacher, and I really believe in Reiki becoming far more mainstream in the world, that it becomes something that children grow up with as a part of their wellness practices, and that they can grow up knowing that they could become a professional Reiki practitioner and it could support them financially. Like it's a legitimate career path. It's a legitimate path to choose. And that was the way that, that the money part of it had to come into it, because most of us aren't born into wealth and need an income. So that was really helpful. Now what I know in doing so much research on the history of Reiki is the understanding of how much of Reiki was originated through Usui, through business adoption, through Hayashi having a business. They did charge money. In fact, they mostly worked with only elite people in their culture, which historically is shown to potentially be one of the reasons that Reiki made it through all of the changes in Japan, through the World War, everything after, and then coming through Mrs. Takata and reading more about her history in Justin Stein's fantastic book, by the way, Justin Stein, and talking about Reiki and Mrs. Takata's history and why and how she implemented charging money for it on a very personal level. So it was something. Oh, and then here was a piece I just read in Justin's book that made sense. One of the places where the idea that you should not charge money for Reiki actually came from when Dr. Hayashi was teaching in Hawaii. He was on a tourist visa. And because of that, he was not allowed to actually make money in Hawaii. Just like if, you go to another country and you're going to be employed there, you have to have certain kinds of visas. Well, he had a tourist visa. So a lot of the people that he taught during that time were charged through bartering. They were charged through exchange that way. And I'm not sure how it worked with Mrs. Takata and how all of that played out in the end. But that is one of the places where that idea came from, is that, you don't ever charge money for Reiki. And then, of course, Mrs. Takata taught that you always charge money for Reiki, which I didn't want that to be a rule either. I didn't want to feel like I had to always charge. I mean, I do plenty of free Reiki. There's so many reasons for it all the time. So anyway, that's what I have to add. There's a historic basis for it, is really what it amounts to. Yeah. Lots of reasons for it today, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add to Colleen that this is Danny, that what helps me with money is, or invoicing or charging, is when I set up my Reiki session, I put all that into my reminder. So we don't have to talk about it during the session. So it doesn't take you out of that energy of, now we're going to talk about money and how we pay. And so I get all of that settled in our confirmation on what the rate is and how they would like to pay. And so during the session, then we just don't have to talk about it.
Nice. Yeah. That is a great suggestion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a lot of people have automatic schedulers now and things like that.
Yeah.
Also do know that there are no rules that you always have to charge money, because I actually, when I first learned Reiki, that was the rule. That was in 2000. It was like, that was an absolute. And then finding out that, Usui, even though he had a business, he still attuned to over 2,000 people with Reiki in 4 years. And he worked so tirelessly in the Kanto earthquake that he actually received an award from the mayor of Tokyo. And so, he also did plenty of free Reiki too. So, there's both. There's no requirement one way or the other.
Yep, I agree, Danny. And a lot of people charge beforehand too.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that that's actually more of the common practice, is that they charge before the session as well. So, and like you said, so much of it's automated, Acuity, Calendly, there's a lot of it that's automated now as well. So you just kind of set it up and then you don't have to worry about it as much. So yeah, thanks, Danny. Good reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, so the next question is actually about next step. And so I wanted to just explain a little bit about what next step is. And so the question is, I love the meditation journeys and would like to have this ability. Is that something that is taught in next step classes? And do you mind discussing what happens in level 1, level 2, and level 3? So what this question is referring to is Colleen and my additional classes that we teach. We teach a course that is called what's called Next Step Reiki and Explore the 12 Heavens. Those classes are 1 year long classes, and we meet each month on Zoom. And it is additional skills training using Reiki energy. So the next step course, they're slightly different. The next step course is 3 years, but they're broken up into 1 year courses. So we have a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 course. And to have the short answer of your question. Yes, that's exactly what you learn in Next Step Reiki. In level 1, you're learning Reiki journey techniques. So many of us have heard that term, journeying, shamanic journeying. We teach how to do that with the Reiki energy. So that's the level 1. So we learn skills training, but we also learn those skills training through different topics. As I said, we do money and success consciousness as one of the months. So there's a lot of healing. We do soul's purpose in level 1. There's a lot of healing, a lot of empowerment and revealing. And along the way, what we're doing is we're using these different topics in order to learn the skills behind it. Then in level 2, that level is called, that's the second year, that level is called the Spirit Reveal technique. And that is where we learn kind of exactly what you're saying. We learn session techniques. However, they are extrapolated out to being able to like channel a meditation, channel a journey for other people. And we learn how to do the session techniques that Colleen and myself created, that many people here are trained in and do as a part of their session style. And what that is just expanding on the Reiki energy and using a Reiki journey along with a traditional Reiki session to expand on the psychic impressions that come through in a session. So Danny is trained in this technique. That's her session style. Teresa, who's here, is trained in this session style. There's a lot of others that are here in this Q&A. I saw Caroline earlier that have been through Reiki Central. There's a lot of others in here that have been through this training and do this session style or combine it with other modalities. And then level 3 is channeling out loud, where we learn how to channel those psychic impressions out loud in real time. So that is what you hear in our Reiki journey, in our meditations and the Reiki journeys we guide in, like today, the invocation that Colleen did, and the distance Reiki shares, and the ceremonies. All of those things are channeled. And that is a part of all of that skills training, because you start with sessions and eventually it expands out. On top of it, I will say not everybody that goes in there into those classes are there for being able to do that for other people. We have a lot of people that are in there for just personal reasons and wanting to expand, wanting to have these skills, wanting to do this stuff for themselves, go through this incredible healing journey that it offers. And so that's a part of the course as well. We're always doing the healing and empowerment work as a part of all of this. Then Explore the 12 Heavens is another 1-year course that's a little bit different. What we're doing there is we are going through the 12 levels of consciousness. The first level being here, the physical realm, Earth. The 12th level being consciousness, pure form. And so we're, again, using Reiki journey techniques where we're using Reiki energy to go and explore enlightened realms. We're going to explore, things like where we meet spirit guides. That's what Reiki journey techniques do. They do things like that. And we go and we explore the different levels of consciousness. And each of them have their own qualities, their own frequencies. And so that class is super healing as well, super empowering as well, but it is a little bit different where it's an exploration class instead of like a skills training, although you do increase your Reiki journey skills in that class a lot as well. So they're just a little bit of a different approach to them. We have resources on these courses. So we go through on Reiki Lifestyle. I'm going to go ahead and just go through this real quick. I'm going to just show you on Reiki Lifestyle. We have and for those of you that aren't watching, we are putting this as obviously in video on YouTube, but you'd be able to get it. So you go to ReikiLifestyle.com. And if you go to the ongoing training tab here, you're going to see Next Step Reiki, Explore the 12 Heavens, and then 12 Heavens versus Next Step. So which class is right for you? We have videos in every single one of these levels. So if you go to Next Step Reiki, there's a 10-minute video on what it is. If you go to level 1, there's a 10-minute video on what each of the modules cover and more in depth of what it is. And then we have the 10-minute video on which one are you interested in? Which one is right for you this year? That kind of thing. So I don't want to go into too much detail because we have a lot of resources on them. We have podcasts on them. You can go into onto our channel or into our podcasts and search Next Step. You're going to see information on them. We are actually opening registration. We open registration for the following year in the fall. So, usually it's around mid-November. I'm sorry. We open, I think I said that correctly. So the classes start again in January. They start mid-January. That's when they'll start again. Registration usually opens about mid-November for those classes. And so they are coming up. We do end up closing registration right around class time, usually a few days before. So if you are interested in them, definitely keep an eye out. We'll announce it a lot. It's definitely where we go into, you hear from us a lot around it. So you'll know. We usually do a free webinar around it just so that you can kind of get a taste of what we experience in Next Step, but you also get a lot of resources in that free webinar too. So definitely keep an eye out for that and go to those videos. If you're interested in learning more details, go to those videos. They're going to answer a lot of questions for you. Anything else around that, Colleen or Danny?
No, and I'm not sure about, I want to make sure we get to Kara's question too.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Kara, I don't know if you want to ask it live or you want me to read it. Okay, so her question is, and it's kind of related to this topic. My question has to do with the power of the words that we use. In the Winter 2020 Reiki News magazine, in your article about teaching online, you wrote about the wording change for the River of Life experience from healing in the River of Life experience to empowered by the River of Life experience. And she says it was a subtle change, yet giving it a different energy. I'm definitely a word person and believe that words contain power. I've made changes in thought patterns by changing words like should to choose to, and chores and tasks to accomplishments, lists to agenda. I'm aware of this for myself and am inviting a discussion around people understanding the subtle changes of words and creating wonderful new energy in their life. So, yes, I agree. And in that exact example, by the way, when I do this, it's because my video gets fuzzy. People said recently that when I put my hand up in front of me, they think I'm doing a signal or some kind of Reiki thing. It's just focus. Anyway, going back to that topic and the change from healing in the River of Life to empowered by the River of Life, then the next change that came into that meditation or experience is now it is empowered by the River of Peace. So just using those examples is, I think, a good example. So healing in the River of Peace had a specific energy. There was a healing aspect to that. And it was focused on the healing. When it changed to empowered, what I noticed with it, empowered by the River of Peace, is the empowerment included the healing and also included the revealing of the empowering nature that river of life energy brought in. So in my sessions, I would see the river of life and empowerment with the river of life waters. For instance, there would be an experience of perhaps people drinking the waters from the river of life, pure waters of creation, the primordial waters of creation. And so the empowerment was to come in and actually, and I'm very, my intuition is very metaphorical vision. So what I would see is like drinking those waters would empower the places within a person that were their natural gifts, their natural higher consciousness, their natural empowered self. And it would actually show up as all the cells would just kind of fill up and be hydrated with their higher levels of just daily life, daily living, daily being human. So then it changed to empowered by the river of peace. And that was a really big change. What is that difference from the river of life and the river of peace? And it's a question, to be honest with you, I'm still listening around all the time. I'm still paying attention to that shift in that change. And what does that mean? Because also what happened in the ignition for the Holy Fire Reiki master symbol included the words empowered for peace. And it was very specific in being developed. William Rand and I were working on that together. And it was very specific about the word choice. Was it empowered with peace or empowered with world peace or empowered for world peace? So just take a moment now and if you can, close your eyes and let's listen to that difference. Just take a deep breath. And I'm going to say both phrases. Empowered with world peace. Empowered for world peace. And so you can kind of feel the difference in the energy of the word. It's different. It has a different meaning. At the same time, I can invite the with if I'm saying for, and if I'm saying, with, I can invite the for. I can invite an exchange. But I think Kara's point is the noticing of the shift. And Reiki can actually help us with that. And so it's something that for myself, I'm very aware of. It's always been a part of what I like to think about is words and the energy behind words. And so an example that I used earlier was joy. What is the energy behind joy? What does that mean? And listening around that, living the light of joy. What does that actually mean internally? And that's what Robin and I have been talking about in, as we are doing our new website. And the word joy is, of course, going to be a part of all of our work because it's always been there, like that energy of how do we use Reiki to receive joy? And so one of the things I did years ago, 40 years, well, my son's 44, so 43 and a half years ago, I actually was a lecturer for Weight Watchers. After he was born, they I became a lecturer for Weight Watchers. And part of that back then was very extensive training in public speaking. Like they were very serious about it. It was a long course and a long training in that, because I was, speaking to, sometimes my meetings were 100 people at a time. So we actually had a lot of training for it. And one of the seminars that they did at that time that we were required to go to, the guy was talking about the word don't and how it could be eliminated from the language. And so I started practicing that because my kids were little, Nick was little. And I remember the first thing that I started practicing with him was, instead of saying things like, don't go out in the street, I would say, stay on the sidewalk, or don't run away from me, or I would say, stay where you can see me. And what happened with that, or, don't chew with your mouth open, chew with your mouth closed. And so what happened with just that one single word choice, it trained me how to think about and reframe what I actually was trying to say. And so that took me into really a lifetime of, Kara, what you're actually talking about is really paying attention to the energy behind words. I don't always, as I just said, I don't always, pay attention to everything to that degree. But when I really want to be paying attention, or when I really want to investigate, would probably be as much as anything, because the subject actually interests me. I like the topic, and I like thinking about it and how I'm going to word things and how I want to say something and how I want to communicate something, and why Reiki actually helps with it. Because Reiki actually helps you to a greater clarity of what it is, your authentic voice, what it is you're actually trying to say, what is the meaning behind your words. And the Reiki energy actually brings you to a greater level of clarity with being verbal, writing, using words. And it's also, the biggest piece is very solution oriented. So a lot of times it actually will help you use the words that are actually saying what you mean to say, solutions you want to encourage, communications that you want to use. And so, yes, Kara, great topic. I think paying attention to words is really beneficial and fun. So to me, it's a fun subject to think about. So yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything, Kara. You can if you want. Yeah.
I started this voyage again with my child. He's 57 now. And saying to him, stay where I can see you, and similar things. So I've always been very aware of words. And that's why when I was reading that article, it became very clear, because I'm redoing so many of my Reiki classes right now. And those subtle changes really kind of flew up at me. And so I appreciate your answer a great deal.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like I say, and I hear you say that too. It's a fun, it's a fun topic.
Okay, so the next question, we actually got this yesterday, and it was about if you're, I'm just trying to make sure I got it right, because what an additional person who's here had wanted more clarity around it. So the question is that if you took your Karuna class. I'm going to use Karuna. You took your Karuna class before Holy Fire. So, but you did all the upgrades to Holy Fire Karuna. When you teach that class, and this would apply to the master class as well, when you teach that class, your students are in the latest upgraded version of Holy Fire Karuna. And the short answer is yes. So then there was kind of an additional topic around this, that can you teach both courses? So the Holy Fire, and what was the old style of Karuna, Colleen? I don't remember what the full name.
Well, it wasn't really Usui Tibetan, but
Yeah.
it was,
Usui Tibetan.
You could even call it the original Karuna.
The original Karuna, yeah. I think for ease, it wasn't really Usui Tibetan, but I'm just going to use that term because it's kind of easier to differentiate the two categories. So
lineages.
Lineages, yeah. The two lineages, thank you. So then the question kind of became, well, can you teach both? Can you teach Holy Fire and Usui Tibetan? And the short answer to that is also yes. And some teachers do teach both styles, both lineages of Reiki. However, there's a little bit of a caveat in that, and Colleen, I'm sure you have to add to this, is that you can't combine the two. So they would be two separate courses. So you have your Usui Tibetan course and manual, and Holy Fire course and manual, and they would be taught on different weekends, for example. So they are two separate courses. And so that's where the confusion came in, because some people had thought that they couldn't teach both lineages, both courses. And that was more of the idea of what you could and couldn't teach, is that you just can't combine the two. So I don't know if you want to continue on that path.
Well, I would answer that, and also it answers another question here that was sent in. I'd like to understand the differences of the different types of Reiki lineages and when one would be more appropriate than another. And I'll add to what else she said too, but this answers that question too. So really the differences in the two lineages is that there are different techniques, and more than anything, to combine them is a challenge, just simply because of time, in the class. Like there's not time to combine two different lineages in most of the classes because they're already very full. So it's not incorrect to add other techniques to an existing outline that you're working with in any of the lineages. You can certainly do that. But from a practical viewpoint, it's a difficult thing to do from the teacher perspective, because now you would need to prepare the materials, etc. So if you want to teach both lineages, then you would teach them on separate weekends, because the techniques are significantly different. The master symbols are different in the two lineages of Karuna Reiki. In the original style, there were 4 master symbols, and in the Holy Fire, there is one master symbol. The techniques of how you do the attunements is completely different. The techniques and how you do the extractions is completely different. And it would be a lot to try to teach both styles in one class. It's, again, just practically speaking, it would be a lot. And it would be a lot for your students to have to try to, work with all of the different techniques that we're using. Both of them are beautiful lineages. Both of them are wonderful techniques. But in the reality of it, if you're teaching the one lineage, you want to teach that lineage. And then if you're teaching the other lineage, you want to teach that one. So in answering this other question that came in yesterday, I'd like to understand the differences in the different types of Reiki lineages and when one would be more appropriate than another. So there are a lot of lineages of Reiki, and mostly the difference with that is going to be in the techniques that each lineage teaches, the style that they teach those techniques, the kind of overall essence of how the lineage is taught. Some lineages are much more strict than others, having very definite, this is how you practice, here's what the rules are, this is exactly what you do, and you do this every time. And that is a very powerful structure and very rich for people practicing that way. A lot of the lineages are still doing the hands-on Reiki attunements. And so those are a very kind of, you can really dive into the ceremony of it, really get into the beauty of the attunement with hands-on. And that's very rich for people. And people are called to those lineages because it resonates with a natural style they're going to choose. The Holy Fire lineage that we are working with now has very different techniques in the way that we do the way that the Reiki energy works. So our attunement style is very different. To compare is really a personal connection and resonance. It's not a better than. It is a different style of the ways that things are done and the ways that we're working with the energies. So for instance, for me, I really like the way that in this lineage, we have a lot of Reiki your way and lots of right ways to practice Reiki. So for me, that's more resonant with me. I like being able to connect in with my inner truth, to kind of find my way of how this all works for me. At the same time, we have standardized practices. So I'm not left to just like figure out everything on my own. We have all of the regular standardized tools and techniques, but there's also other ways that you can bring your Reiki in and find your way of practicing. The Reiki attunements in Holy Fire lineage are so much more simple. And that was always, for me, it wasn't a challenge with the hands-on attunements, but many people said they felt like they couldn't learn how to teach it or to pass the attunements on because those hands-on attunements are very complicated. And so a lot of people weren't resonating. It didn't move them into ceremony. It moved them into performance anxiety. So anyway, so it's just a preference. I mean, it's really, again, allowing the energies to guide you to the right lineage. Sometimes you might, study with one lineage and then you study with another lineage to see which matches for you. And to have more than one teacher. That used to be one of the strict lineages that I originally learned, was through the Reiki Alliance. And that lineage the teaching was that once you studied with a teacher, you had to stay with that same teacher, like for the rest of your life. And that wasn't resonant with me because I wanted to explore. I was curious, like, what does this person think? How does this work over here? And so I studied many different lineages of Reiki, and I was also in shamanic practice. And so I wanted to be able to work with all of it. So it's really a matter of preference, allowing yourself to be guided. And the other piece for me is listening to the teachers, because I really cared about my teachers being sincere, authentic, kind, and non-judgmental, and not always right. That was important to me too, that they weren't always right, that I could question, and that I felt free to question. So the other part of that question was I noticed animal Reiki, but did not find anything about plant Reiki or mineral kingdom Reiki. All Reiki works for animal Reiki, mineral Reiki, earth Reiki, mineral kingdom. The animal Reiki that we work with, the ICRT animal Reiki that Robin and myself, Sue Strong and Pamela Blanc are all authors of that course and that manual. That energy is absolutely about plant minerals. In fact, Tree of Life is the energy behind it. So it definitely works with that. This person is also asking then, does Reiki work well with movement and combining Reiki and movement? Absolutely. Many people work with Reiki in a variety of modalities and according to what they're interested in. So, for instance, I was originally in shamanic training and then Reiki integrated into it. And then I became more focused on Reiki energy. And then my shamanic work combined with that. So one person might already be doing movement work, dance with Reiki, or they might already, be doing movement with yoga, for instance, and then combine Reiki with it. And that's possible. Or you can be doing Reiki and you can add movement into your practice and what you teach and how you help people with the body mechanics of it. And then the other part of her question was learning how to measure and quantify, qualify Reiki is particular interest. And to be honest with you, the best place to do that is to go to the website Center for Reiki Research. And that is a very established and well documented, skilled place to find the latest on Reiki research, where it has been and where it is going. So Center for Reiki Research is a good place to find that answer.
Somebody gave a Reiki session to someone with late stage cancer, and there was what they had felt like was, kind of one of those bad reactions that people can have to Reiki. And what I mean by that is, it can happen after a Reiki session or Reiki class that somebody can get a headache. They can get, maybe even not feel that well. A common term for that is called a healing crisis. It's not always a crisis. Sometimes it's just like, why do I have a headache? I thought I would feel great. And so it's just that expectation of the full on blissed out, stress reduced, which is more common with it. But sometimes you do have those places where that what we call the detox is happening, right? It is letting go of things. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable. So this question is a little bit different than kind of that standard aspect of Reiki practice or teaching Reiki, because during the treatment, very relaxed, going really well. The practitioner said, make sure you're drinking lots of water afterwards, which is a pretty common thing that's needing to be done after a Reiki session. But later that day, he was having a lot of nausea, feeling very anxious, even some pacing, things like that can be common with, end of life. So, she was just wondering, is this not something that she should continue to work with this person? Would an attunement be appropriate? Or do you think maybe there could be a similar reaction to an attunement? So that was kind of the question around it. And Colleen, I know you have a lot of experience with not just cancer, but also end of life work. And so I thought that this would be an appropriate question for you to kind of weigh in on.
Well, there's so many answers to it, first of all. And as a practitioner, there's just so many variables in how people receive Reiki, why it shows up the way it does for them. Yesterday, somebody was talking about the first time they received Reiki, knowing zero about it. And suddenly they were taken to Isis, the goddess, and they had no awareness of that even anywhere in their worldview. And how surprising it was. All the way to where somebody can have uncomfortable or very, very difficult reactions to a Reiki session. That's uncommon. It's more common that people are going to have that relaxed wellness, feeling good kind of an experience. As a practitioner, we don't know what that is going to be for the client. And there's nothing that we are doing using Reiki that we can make that different for them, because the Reiki energy is working for them, with them, outside of us. We don't control it in any way. It flows through us, and we're not controlling it. And at the same time, of course, as a practitioner, we care deeply when people have a difficult reaction like that, or a difficult experience. We also don't know if it's directly related to Reiki. Would it be another experience that person is already having, and they did at least get a whole afternoon of being peace and quiet? I've worked with quite a bit with cancer patients, and a lot of times what I've seen is, it will really help with their symptoms, pain reduction, sleep, but it doesn't mean that it cures all of those symptoms permanently. Sometimes it does, but again, as a practitioner, I don't know that. I've had the miracles happen in my hands, and what would be considered a miracle cure. And I've also had people pass away in my hands, and it didn't cure them, but it healed other parts of them. It healed things that I am not privy to, or know why that would be what is meaningful for them. So the next part of that question was, would giving this person a Reiki attunement help them? The only way you're going to know that is by asking them if they would like it, and following their guidance and saying yes or saying no. I have, for that question, maybe leading to the idea of, can you attune somebody to Reiki outside of giving them a Reiki class? Absolutely. In a case like this, where this person could use Reiki for self-Reiki, or maybe their caregiver could use Reiki to help this person, you can absolutely give attunements for those purposes. They do not have to go through Reiki training to be able to give them an attunement. Not everybody can do that. And the purpose of it is for Reiki for them to have Reiki for themselves, for their needs now. Going to a historical basis, because I always like to take it back to that, Usui Sensei practiced Reiki on people through that Kanto earthquake and just gave them Reiki. So knowing that that is possible, and in the bigger picture, let's say I'm giving Reiki to somebody because they need it, I'm not giving them like a Reiki certificate without the training. So just clarifying that. But to give somebody Reiki, a Reiki attunement, because it would benefit them in that moment, absolutely, and would help them with self Reiki, or again, sometimes I've given Reiki to people that are the caregivers, so they have it. As far as whether that's the right decision, I would personally ask him and let your guidance come from him. If he says yes to it, then trust the yes and know that Reiki is guiding him to that yes. You can also, again, offer Reiki. It's pretty unlikely that it would be a continued reaction to it, or if that even was specifically a reaction to Reiki, that's another question. He may have had those experiences, aside from Reiki energy. Also, just to clarify, giving somebody Reiki is not going to have them pass away sooner or keep them longer. It is going to always be working on with their spirit, with how that is working for them. Reiki will never impose itself on anyone that does not want to receive it. And it would certainly never have something accelerate because of the Reiki or prolong because of the Reiki. It will always work with that person. But back to you and that specific question, I would make the suggestion without a lot of input around it. Just make the suggestion and let him think about it and make his own decision and follow the guidance of his decision.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. That actually comes to our time today. Great questions and discussions and topics as usual. So thank you to everybody that joins us live and asks their questions, and everybody that is listening later. We just love these episodes. They're always so much fun. So lots of love to you all, lots of gratitude to you all, and we will see you next time.
I do want to add just one little thing of, if anybody is still considering going to the Sedona Reiki retreat that's coming up, that is over the Labor Day weekend, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning. And there's still space. There's also space online for it. And the online is actually good now. 2 years ago, it was not. Last year, we got they got a professional videographer. And so the online is now good. You can go to ReikiClasses.com for that and sign up for it. Okay.
All right. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.